We are very fortunate to be joined this morning by Andrew Callaghan of Channel 5, who is out with a new documentary called Dear Kelly. Great to have you, Andrew. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I'm a big fan of Breaking Points. I appreciate you guys for the platform. It's early morning, thanks to y'all, so thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for waking up for us. We appreciate that. We are likewise big fans. Let me give people a little bit a taste of the trailer here, and then on the other side, you can tell them the backstory of what inspired you to follow this one individual. Let's take a look.
Why did the framework created by QAnon and Trump propaganda cause an innumerable amount of people to jump headfirst down the rabbit hole, endangering their safety, lives, and freedom? I thought I had it figured out. I pointed fingers at the fear-mongering 24-hour news cycle.
There's nothing fake about CNN.
And at radio hosts who sell supplements and t-shirts to paranoid libertarians. But deep down, I didn't really know. That was until I met a man named Kelly J. Patriot at a White Lives Matter rally in Huntington Beach, California, and asked him one question.
What's the most painful piece of truth that's hurt you?
Guy stealing my home. His name's Bill Joyner. Financially, he wanted to destroy me. He destroyed my 25-year business, separated and devastated my family. So that answers your question.
This dude sounds like he sucks.
I don't think he's a good guy. In my opinion, he's a bad guy and he's hurt a lot of people. But then again, look what the Democrats are doing to others. Kobe Bryant was assassinated by the Clintons.
I hope you fucking die, homie, straight up.
So what was it that caused you to be sort of captivated by this guy and to really follow up with him and figure out what was actually going on there?
I think that it came from just not being satisfied with my kind of deep dives into the MAGA far right for a long time. I had just followed Trump's campaign trail across the country, filming for my first project on HBO, and I felt like I had sort of been able to document the craziness in a time capsule, but never really been able to understand what economic and social factors actually cause people to become radicalized, especially dudes who are later in life like Kelly. And I never really was able to actually dig deep. But in his story about Bill Joyner and the foreclosure of his house and his family being separated, I saw a window and a chance to actually figure out the why of how people get like that in the first place.
Yeah, and it's you're probing this central chicken or egg question that a lot of your work is based on, which, I think one of the reasons people love your work is you come to this idea that there are a lot of very good people who do a lot of crazy things and get caught up in the fringes. And you include some interesting stats about January 6th and, for example, people's debt levels, whether they were there on January 6th, if they had particular levels of debt. There's just a big proportion of people. I hadn't even realized that there were numbers attached to all of this. I mean, you could see it when you were there. But can you tell us a little bit about how this experience with Kelly either changed, modified, added nuance to the way you see the world, that, maybe there are some people who come into all of this stuff with prior difficulties and then it changes them, or is it just, a one-way street?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, before I started documenting Kelly, and this is filmed over the course of 4.5 years, I didn't realize that so many people who were so deep in that QAnon rabbit hole had just normal lives in 2020 that were completely derailed by financial hardship, and particularly how that coalesced with political psychosis. I don't like using the word misinformation because it's not like everything they read is totally false or consumes false, but it's just being locked in this echo chamber of 24/7 outraged content for a long period of time. And definitely learned a lot about just people like that in general, but also about myself as a documentary filmmaker and how emotionally invested I want to be in the outcome of a subject or someone that I'm documenting. By the end of the film, especially after the intervention, to spoil it a bit, not too much, I was so emotionally invested in Kelly turning over this new leaf that it became more important than my own life. And I don't think I ever want to get that involved again. Because I'd filmed 350 hours of footage in total, and I ultimately baked it down to 89 minutes. But it was my personal expectations were tethered to his in a way that I'm not sure was super healthy.
I think for me, as a democratic socialist who thinks a lot about class analysis, the way you approach this really played into some of my sort of mental preconceptions, because you're there was a material harm that happened to a lot of these people, and it sort of pushed them in this direction of radicalization. And that's both true and not true in Kelly's case. He did genuinely go through this foreclosure, which for anyone is a, horrific situation. But the way he portrayed it was also not entirely accurate. And then when you're still many years past that financial hardship, and there's still, and you've had this severing of relationship with your kids, and you're not being there for them as, as a father, and they're having to have these, again, I don't want to spoil too much, but they're coming to you saying this has really hurt us, and you have a chance to turn over that new leaf, and that's not necessarily the direction that you want to go in. It just makes the picture a little more complex, right? It's not as simple and straightforward a sort of math equation of, financial hardship plus loss of connection. I mean, you actually have a sort of like formula you lay out in the beginning. Doesn't have to lead to this, doesn't always lead to this. There are other choices. It's not always like as clear a picture as you're telling yourself in your head. Did it kind of challenge some of your conceptions coming in as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I started when I was 22 and I finished when I was 27. Like the first shoot being the White Lives Matter rally on April 11th, 2021, and the last shoot being 3.5 weeks ago with our friend Uncle Pill at a skate park in San Diego. You can see my approach like kind of morph throughout the whole thing, because midway through like 23, 24, I'm like, I'm going to be able to figure this out. I've got everything diagnosed. I have all the ducks in a row. I'm going to make sure that he's able to turn over a new leaf. But one thing that I noticed too is that I didn't mention this in the movie very much, but the idea of self-narrative was also very important in his sort of inability to turn over that new leaf over time. Because it's a comforting self-narrative for him to have this heroic black and white, good versus evil, Bill Joyner, screwed me over. And the way that morphs with the political movement in general is very two-dimensional. You know what I mean? The idea that there's this like nebulous dark force out there that's just, it exists. We don't know what it is, but it's there to rob everything from the hardworking, red-blooded American patriot. And it might not be, my boogeyman might not be shared by yours. However, we're all united in our fight against the evil forces. And in a way that's comforting to people in his position, because it stops them from actually picking up the pieces, right? That's why I was, he was spending 15 hours a day putting up leaflets saying Bill Joyner stole my home. That time easily could have been used at, maybe getting an entry-level job and trying to save up money to start from the bottom. But that's a lot. It takes a lot of humility to be able to bring yourself back to that level and start from scratch. It's easier to revel in the past while simultaneously leading a hero's narrative that keeps you in a revenge mind state.
Well, and actually, I just want to jump onto that point, because one of the interesting things that you touch on is how he grew up in a mobile home in, I think it was Iowa. And so he may have been ultimately a bankruptcy attorney, but there was something, I think, traumatic, and I'm curious what you make of this, for him about losing his kind of upper middle class, if not upper class status. And that for him was maybe like the truth that he didn't want to grapple with. You hear his kids saying that it was like the house. It was he could not give up the house, and he's still driving his banged up BMW, even though it's got a big like dent in the hood, as your camera's caught. It seems like there was something about growing up poor that made him cling to the kind of fantasy of having made it.
Yeah, definitely, because he sort of achieved the American dream, which is just class mobility in general. I mean, especially nowadays with the cost of living, very few people can go from living in a mobile home in their lifetime to being cemented as a community member in an upper class gated community. So he hit that point, and I think the material obsessions were his way of holding on to what that meant to him, like internally. And you see this all the time. People hit the lottery, rappers get a bunch of money, they spend it more on like material items because they have a sort of imposter syndrome in general, because they didn't grow up in the same way that their peers did, because most people who are rich grew up rich. There's very little crossover. And so I felt like, he felt it was a huge blow to his ego, and also, self-perception and self-narrative to be foreclosed upon.
Are you still in touch with Kelly? Is he happy his guy's back in the White House now?
Yeah, he's actually pretty excited about the film. Like, a lot of people look at the end of the film and they think like, oh my God, he must feel so bad about it, But at the end of the day, there is a lot of small victories that have been secured throughout the process of the film. Like him not caring so much about Bill Joyner, which is his boogeyman, evil, predatory lender guy that he claims ruined his life. Him not caring about Bill by the end is a huge stride forward. If you consider that in the opening scene at Planned Parenthood, he's almost like passing out from anger, yelling about Bill. Yeah. So, I mean, it might not be the Hollywood ending that people want. Yeah, he's never met him. And, I'm being sued by Bill right now, which sucks. So but I also haven't met Bill either.
Wow. So there's more story to unfold there, just with you versus Bill Joyner. Maybe you'll be the next one, like Bill Joyner ruined my life now.
Next time you're on, Andrew, it's just going to be you talking about Bill Joyner.
It remains to be seen.
There was one other thing I wanted to ask you about, Andrew. If we could put F1 up on the screen. You put out a very pretty aggressive posts here about Elon Musk, none of which I disagree with, but in any case, it felt like a little bit of a break from the way you normally approach things, because a lot of times you sort of let your work and the characters you follow speak for themselves. And I just was curious what led you to take this more aggressive approach. And after having watched the documentary, actually, it made me wonder if that was part of your evolution to make being more directly, personally outspoken.
Well, I mean, a little, just like Elon Musk has been doing like Nazi dog whistle stuff on Twitter for like 5 or 6 months now. I know this because I grew up on 4chan, like back in the day, back the pre-censorship free internet, when like half the people were Nazis and half the people were anarchists, like back in the day, when it was like either you were part of Anonymous or you were like a seriously like Charlottesville person. And so I know that he's been doing these like weird, not even dog whistles, just like straight up following Nazi accounts, reposting Nazi shit. And then when he did that, I don't know, I just got triggered. I kind of felt bad when I posted it because I'm supposed to be like neutral and maintain composure. But that was for sure a Hitler salute. And it's a Hitler salute, not just because of the obvious body language, but because the guy has been paying homage to like Nazi ideology in accounts on X for the past like 6 to 8 months. And so, but the comments are crazy. So many people are like going to bat for Elon. They're like, he's just giving his heart out to the people. I was like, dude, if you give your heart out to the people, you go like this. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys. Heart goes out to you. You don't do the Sig Heil. But, I think we're in this era where, he could do it and say Sig Heil. I don't think people would care. They'd find out a way to rationalize it and be like, dude, he's just so autistic. You don't know if you met an autistic person, but they're always hailing Hitler, I guess.
Yeah. Have you considered you're just being ableist right now, Andrew?
See? Now the what's it called? The sights are on me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was just like, that's the thing with, we're all like downstream of 4chan culture now, that people who are not being ironic get away with the like shield of irony. And to like, in some fairness, it actually does make it hard to, it doesn't mean that irony trolling is right, but it does make it hard to like sometimes decode. But I guess, Andrew, having spent time on 4chan, you speak the language probably better than most.
Yeah, I definitely do. And not to mention, he's not from the United States. And he has a lot to say about migrants coming here and ruining shit. Whereas this guy is from South Africa, of all places, the most racist place that ever exists in the history of the world. And he's coming here and he's manipulating information. That seems pretty treasonous and like some foreign interference to me. And it's just crazy to think that Trump ran his whole campaign on getting the deep state bureaucracy out of office. And now it appears that he has like a private, council of tech oligarchs backing him entirely. Mm-hmm. So it appears that the deep state was elected.
Well, I personally appreciate the new outspoken mode of Andrew Callaghan, so I hope we hear more of it, and of course, always look forward to your work. Tell people where they can watch Dear Kelly.
You guys can watch Dear Kelly at www.dearkellyfilm.com for the low rental cost of $5.55, or if you're feeling generous, you can buy it forever for $15.55.
It's worth it.
And he's got some lawsuit costs against Bill Joyner, so help him out with that, guys.
Shout out to Bill, shout out to Kelly, shout out to Breaking Points.
Thanks, Andrew. Man. Great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.